Google Classroom Interactions for Interactivity, and we are glad that you all are here to join us today. And so we're going to hop right in and get going. I'm Janet Frazier. I'm the Digital Learning Facilitator that serves the Inca District.
And I'm Kendra Cameron Jarvis, and I serve the Robertson District.
So just real quickly, if you are having any type of sound or video issues, I think everybody's okay, but if you are, if you will wave at us, put something in the chat, something so we will know that anything is going on. And just another notice that we are recording, so if you don't want to be on video, if you'll mute your camera, that will be great. We will give you a link for my learning plan at the end of the session. And if you would like to go ahead and open the slides that we're using right now, Kendra's going to pop this in the chat, but it is bit.ly/interactive Google class. All right. Everything look good so far, Kendra?
Yep.
Okay. So as we think about interactivity, I think as teachers, all of us know why that we want our classes interactive. And just to put it in kind of a fun way, in a light way, it makes it impossible to sleep through a class. And so I really liked this quote from Harvard, and I just thought that that was really powerful, because not only does it help students not to sleep through class, but also just to really get them involved, get their brains working along with their hands, and if they're up and moving, then their bodies are working as well. And so it really just helps students all around with learning. And we're going to look at 5 different types of interactive activities today. Try saying that 5 times fast. So these are the types of activities that we're going to touch on briefly. We're going to look at these. We're going to give you a little bit of time to build, and then we're going to share some ideas. The first one we're going to look at is individual docs and slides. Then we're going to move directly into collaborative docs and slides. We're going to look at some social media inspired templates, some game style activities, and also some integrated tools that just work really well with Google Classroom. So individual copies of slides and docs, I am going to venture to say that this is probably one of the most common types of work that you use in Google Classroom. So if you are already using individual copies of slides and docs, give us some kind of a reaction. It can be a smiley face, a hands up, a clap, good, thumbs up, I see thumbs up. Good. Okay. So these are very common and a lot of fun, because they do get our students interactive with whatever they're being presented. So what are some benefits of these individual copies? Well, the first benefit, and as a Google Classroom user, I know you know that when we share this in Google Classroom, as make a copy for each student, it's automatically going to be created for that student. When they click on it, it's automatically named with that student's name in front of it. And so to me, that organizational piece is just one of the most powerful things that accompanies the individual copies of the slides and docs. We know that they're automatically saved in a Google Classroom folder in Google Drive, both in yours as well as in the students'. And then it does promote independence in our students, because they each have that they can almost put their hands on, and it's theirs, it belongs to them. And it can also be used as a way to scaffold for students who might need that. So here are some different ideas, and these are linked. The ones that are in blue are linked so that you can see these later at your leisure. We're not going to take time to look at a lot of these, but I did put a couple of asterisks beside a couple of these, and that's significant. So the locking the background for drag and drop, we do have a drag and drop training that was done. Kendra, I think we did that, what, a couple of weeks ago? And so before long, the video for that will be up and on the YouTube for digital learning, and you're welcome to go back and look at that. That goes into detail about that. There is an example here as well. But the individual slides and copies are great, as I said previously, for scaffolding activities for students. to give some students one and some students another, and to give them something to start with so that they're not starting with a blank sheet of paper. Fill in the blank digitally, obviously. Editable math work, both of those are going to be great when they're able to write on a document on their computer. Interactive math stories is a lot of fun, and I did link an example to that here, and that example you can use and make a copy of and then make it your own, and they actually do give permission for that. It's great for templates, and we'll look at some more templates in a little bit. Creating a comic strip. We do have a training that has been done on creating a comic strip using this, and each student gets their base and then they're able to take it and run with it. Yet it's in a controlled environment because they can be given a bank of characters and a bank of speech bubbles and a bank of props, and then they go to town creating a comic strip about whatever subject that they are studying. A template for memes, it's a great way to use these. To create your own app in Google Slides, and this link goes directly to a page that explains how to use Google Slides as that base for them to be able to create an app, in quotation marks, and gives them some real critical thinking skills with that. And then also creating your own adventure story template. So this was some additional examples for that. And one is using Google Drawings for brainstorming. And so if you've used Google Drawings at all, it's a great way for students to be able to draw out and get a visual of the ideas that they're generating. You also can start with a template and share that so that it makes a copy for each student in your Google Classroom. And then they're able to start with a basic Google drawing and expound upon that. Another example would be using Google templates for graphic organizers. And so we know how powerful that a graphic organizer can be to help students with thinking. And there are ready-made templates that are available. You can create a template if you have a specific need, or take a template that's already there and edit it to meet your specific need. And Google Drawings as well as Google Slides. It kind of depends on which you prefer, but both of those work very well for that. And I did put a link also for Eric Kurtz for his graphic organizer templates, because there are quite a few that are ready-made and ready for you to duplicate and make your own. And then we have a stop motion animation slides. Has anybody ever attempted to do stop motion animation in slides? I'm going to just look back and see anybody. Okay, I don't see anybody that's saying yes. If you need to unmute, you're welcome to. I am going to click on this just because I want you to see this just very quickly, a little bit of it. We won't look at all of it. But you can see that this is made in slides. They did edit the page shape, and this actually has 170 or 80 slides in it. And so you'll see why in just a moment. So I'm going to click present, and when I get into the present mode, I have a couple of options, and it won't take but a second to load, but this is just really powerful, so I wanted you to see this. When I click play, it's set, and it seems like it's every second that it's going to go. And so if you're watching up here, you'll see this arrow moving each second. And so what they did was take that first one and edit each slide just a small amount so that it morphs. Now I'm going to click the next slide just so that I can speed it up and you can see what happens. So you see these start to move. And I just love this because we think about things like this on a much simpler scale often for younger students, but this is very complex. And so I just wanted you to see an example of how Google Slides was used specifically for a high school student. So I'm sure, because you already know this, that you know how to share a copy by making a copy for each student. Then we know that each student does get their own copy. The only thing I really want to mention here is just the naming convention. When you get your original of one of these templates, I would recommend naming it original and then the rest of the name, or the name and then original, or template, or something, so that you know that that is the one that you don't want to edit, so that then when you make your class copy, you can rename it for that class or take off the word original or template. So just kind of a naming convention tip so that you'll have that as you continue down this road.
All right, so next we're going to talk about collaborative slides and docs. And I'm going to pop this into the chat. And if you would go to this link, Janet, can you go ahead and open that link for me? Thanks. All right, so you're going to grab a sticky and at the bottom, and you're going to add to the board and tell how you used either collaborative docs or slides in your classroom. If you've never used them, that's okay. If you've seen them used, you can share that as well. So let's take just a minute and give you an opportunity to do that. And just notice that you're now working in a collaborative doc. So someone is saying that they've used Jamboard. They've used the sticky notes on Jamboard as a way to collaborate. And we just did a training on that recently. It's a really neat tool if you've never used that before. And someone says they've used Padlet for collaboration. Yep. And then someone said that they paired students and had them create presentations. And then they've also seen whole classes use one doc. And then someone else is saying that they've used other collaborative platforms, but not Google, but they also have used Padlet. Very good. Janet created this. So I'm going to ask her, put her on the spot real quick. Janet, will you share how you created this real quick?
Yeah, just very quickly, what I did was I came into Google Slides and I reformatted my slide to make it this shape and put in the parts that I didn't want to move, which were the blue text box at the top and the cork board. And I saved it as a JPEG. And then I went to a new slide and uploaded this as the background and then added the sticky notes on top and made it shareable to where anyone who had the link was able to edit.
Very cool. All right. Will you pop back into the presentation? There we go. Very good. Thank you. All right. So we're going to start talking about Google Slides. Well, Google Slides or Docs, but it really is a transformational tool to create a document that your students can collaborate on, especially now, regardless of their location. So you might have some kids that are remote, but you also may have some kids that are face-to-face, and you want to continue, regardless of where they are, to make them feel like they're part of one classroom community. So using Google Slides or Google Docs and allowing those students to collaborate together is a great way to do that. And so we're going to look at a couple ideas of how you can use these tools in your classroom. But first, we're going to talk about the benefits. So there's several benefits of collaborative slides. The first one is that it's a shared learning environment. Everyone is doing their work together. So teamwork is a tool. It's a skill that these students are going to need in the workforce. And so having them practice it in school is how we prepare them. So having them work collaboratively this way is a way to get them used to working together digitally. With collaborative slides, everyone gets a piece of the pie, so to speak. So everyone has their own slide It's a part of a whole presentation. And slides are easy to use. It's a nice way for students to share their learning with you and with each other. So is there a way to give them access to only edit their assigned slide? And yeah, that's what everyone wants to know. I don't know of a way to do that. When I've done this in the past, and we've had to practice with students because the first couple times you do this, you're going to have kids accidentally popping over to someone else's slide. And so I've got some ideas that might be helpful. So maybe that doesn't happen, but it's definitely something you're going to teach them how to do. So these are some of the ideas that I've seen and that I've used with collaborative slides. You can do collaborative writing prompts. So maybe you have a story starter and then everyone has their own slide, individual slide in that slide deck, and they continue the story on their slide. Or it could be a motivational Monday quote. Just like you would do on paper and pencil, but everyone has their own slide that they respond. A way that I've used this is when I had a lot of content to cover that I couldn't possibly cover in a class. I would have them research different pieces of whatever that topic was in a collaborative slide. And so I didn't have to teach all those different topics. By researching those topics and putting on the slide, they were able to teach each other. A lot of teachers use Google Slides as a collaborative vocabulary deck. We saw one yesterday in a training we were in where students are assigned, either they're assigned, usually I've seen them assigned a word, and then they have to come up with a student-friendly definition, an example of how it's used, and an image. Another way that this is used, usually at the beginning of the year, is an All About Me slide. So it's a collaborative slide where every kid has their own slide and they have specific instructions. They add pictures that represent who they are. They add things about their hobbies, stuff about their families. And it's just a way to get to know each other. You could use this as a question. So as kids come in, have them respond on a collaborative slide to the question that you post. It could be a reading reflection or a math journal. You can also do book snaps, which I know Leanne has done before on slides. And I don't know if Stuart's done those as well. Janet, is that example that you put in there, is there a visual where we could show them what it looks like for people who've not done it?
Probably so. This links directly to Tara Martin's site. So let me look real quick and we'll see.
Sometimes it's easier to understand what a book snap is if you kind of see a visual of what it looks like.
Well, and I'm not seeing.
No.
Yeah, I'm not seeing one.
So really, if I hope I can explain it correctly, but it's really pulling out a piece of the book text and adding your thoughts and ideas to it in words and images. It's the best way that I can explain. Leanne, do you want to add to that? Because I know you did it in your class.
They loved it. It was really good, and because Kendra helped me with it, that they were limited in what they could put in their images. So I had slides that they could pull from. In other words, they just didn't go into Google images and pull anything off the internet. So they were limited to what they could pull in. And they picked a favorite book and they took a picture of it, the cover, and then they took a picture or two from inside the book and put it on all of that on one slide, and a quote or their thoughts. And yeah, it got really creative with it. So it was a lot of fun. And then the whole class could see it.
Thanks.
I like that. And really being a snapshot of wherever they are in the book or whatever piece that they want to share about. And I know you mentioned the like a bank of pictures, and that is great because it does control it some. And it could even be, I don't know what y'all did, Kendra, maybe emojis or something like that.
Yeah, we had emojis, if I remember, for them to pull.
I love that.
They could use anything out of their book, any picture from their book. We just didn't have them go into Google Images.
Right.
Hey, Janet, I just sent you, we did book snaps with my class last year, and I just sent you the Google slides of that if you want to pull one up to show them.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So another way that you could have kids collaborate using the G Suite is doing a shared spreadsheet. So in this example, students are working on one shared spreadsheet and they're adding data to it so that everyone can see each other's data. So that is a way you could do that with spreadsheets. Janet, do you want to pull that up real quick?
Spreadsheet or the other book snaps.
You want to pull up her book snaps real quick?
It's going to take a minute. I'm going to let you keep talking if you don't want, and I'll find it.
Okay. Another example, and this goes back to the research example. This is one I did the other day. So the students are reading Of Mice and Men, and I wanted them to do research on the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. And so I made a collaborative Google slide. So say I had 30 kids in the class, I just made 31 slides and I kept it really simple. So that's my title slide. My title slide didn't have to be pretty. I put the directions up there, and what I asked them to do was that they, on each slide, there was a different topic related to the Dust Bowl or the Great Depression. I asked them to claim a slide by writing their name in a speaker's note, and that might be helpful to prevent kids from popping on each other's slide, as long as they claim their own slide. Then I had specific things that I wanted them to add to the slide. And then at the end, to let me know very quickly who was finished, I asked them to turn the background yellow. So I could pop in and, I can see my whole slide deck very quickly. I could see which ones were yellow and which ones weren't. I could also watch kids work, which was really nice. So I could give them feedback. I could correct a misunderstanding right then when they needed that the most. I also find it helpful, if you're going to do this, to add your links that you want them to use to research, so that they don't go to links like Wikipedia and some other links that are questionable. So this is very, very easy to do, and it's a great activity. Have any of you ever done this type of activity before with the collaborative slides?
Sort of. Kendra, how did you do the claim your own slide thing? Can you explain that again, please?
Yeah. So once I created the slides, and I shared it with my students, I shared the link with them, with everyone can edit, so everyone can edit the slides. And then once you open a slide, at the bottom of the slide, you'll see speaker notes. Not in presentation mode, but just in the regular mode. And so kids would go to slide 1 or whatever slide they wanted. And in the speaker note, they would type their name. And that way everyone knew that that was that student's slide. Does that make sense, Leanne? It doesn't prevent them from popping on each other's slide, but it at least stakes a claim.
It looks like Janet was demonstrating it. Thank you.
Yes.
I've done it, Kendra, in 3rd grade. And the only way I was able to do it is I went ahead and named the slides for the kids. And then I just told them to find their slide, and we did it for like multiplication story problems. So they story problem, changed their background to yellow, and then they were able to answer each other's story problems. So that was
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's a great idea. And so for younger students, like Leanne teaches elementary, if she does this activity, she might want to do the same thing. Just go ahead and pre-name the slide so that Liam sees Liam's slide, right? So I think that's a great idea.
Here are the book snaps from Lindsay's class.
Oh, these look great, Lindsay.
Thanks. They loved it. Janet helped me with this.
I love the emojis on there. And then they took the pictures and gave them, have them do a question also. It looks like each of them has a question. So
yeah, it was kind of a notice and wonder activity. So I
like it. Thank you for sharing.
Right.
Great job. Another way that you can use collaborative docs with students is you can share a doc with 2 students. So one student shares with another student and they give feedback for each other. So we know that students usually do much better work when they have a different person looking at it other than just the teacher. They have a different audience. So anytime you can pair up those kids together to give each other feedback, the better. These are just some quick tips. So for slides, what you may think about doing is printing off numbers and putting them on the back of kids' desks. And so for the rest of the year, when you do collaborative slide activities, that's that kid's slide number. So that might be something that you think about doing. And I put it on the back because we know if we put it on the front of the desk, they're gonna write on top of it and pick it and all that good stuff, right? The other thing that that Lindsay did that I think is super valuable with the collaborative slides is having them give comments to each other. And so I took a screenshot of where those comments are. And instead of saying, hey, you need to comment on 4 other people's slides, because we know that they're going to comment on their friends' slides, and then there's going to be some kids that don't have any comments. What you might think about doing is say, make sure that you comment on the student slide who's sitting in front of you, who's sitting behind you, to the left of you, and to the right of you. And that way it's more equitable. But before you do any of that, it's really important, that digital citizenship piece, to teach your students how to comment well and effectively. So linked there are some comment sentence starters that you may ask your students to use. So you can share a collaborative doc or slide in a couple ways. Inside Google Classroom, when you can create it, where you create it, you can make a copy and you can choose student can edit file. That way students can edit the entire document or the entire collaborative slide. So everyone works on the same file. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to create group work. Oh. So say I have, oh, sorry, Janet. So say I have a Google Doc, right? But I want groups to work on it. So I'm going to create my original Google Doc template and I'm going to name it group 1. I'm going to make 3 more copies and name the second one group 2, group 3, and group 4. Then in Google Classroom, I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to link group 1's document to that assignment. And instead of assigning it to all students, which is the default, uncheck all students and check just those students that are in group 1 and assign. Only those students that you assign it will get that document. And then do the same process for group 2, group 3, and group 4. So that's kind of that's a little hack to create group work in Google Classroom. Does that make sense to you guys? Is that clear? Okay, I just didn't know if I needed to demonstrate that. Is anyone doing that yet with the group work? No, okay. All right, so I'm gonna let Janet talk about social media templates, which are lots of fun.
All right, so how many of your students know what social media is? I would venture to say probably 99% of them. And social media inspired templates are fantastic because number 1, they're engaging. Number 2, we know because we've seen how students abbreviate and adults abbreviate things on Facebook and in tweets and in phone messages, and so it can be very concise, and sometimes that's the fun of it, is making whatever they're trying to say concise. But they do know social media, they've grown up using their parents' phones, and so tap into that. And so I do have a link to templates that are in the Ditch That Textbook by Matt Miller website. Pulled 3 examples just so you can see some of the templates that he has in there. One is a Spotify playlist. Music is a powerful tool. And so you could use a list, a Spotify playlist, a fake Spotify playlist, if you will, to show characterization, to show mood or tone of a piece. You could even use those different songs to give the pieces of a plot to summarize a book or a story or whatever. So there's a Twitter template that he has in there, and students can actually tweet for someone else. And so they may then become someone that's famous or someone that's in one of their books, or maybe a fictitious person. And it can really help with perspective and characterization. And then I pulled the Facebook profile because so many people are familiar with Facebook. Unlike the real Facebook, there's no age limit for this template. So that makes this a nice piece for students to be able to use. And so again, using it to show characterization, using it to show setting. And you can really find out a lot about somebody or about a place by the friends that may show up in their Facebook profile or by the posts and conversations that are there. And so these templates, since they're already created, make your life a lot easier because all you have to do is go to the link, and you're going to have the link when it comes to you in this Google slide deck. And so when you click Get the Template, you're either going to make a copy of it, which is going to be under File, Make a Copy if it's something that's view only, or if it forces a copy, it's going to pull up Copy Document, and you're going to tell it, yes, make a copy. And then again, that just best practice of making it an original or a template so you know that it's yours to use. Any thoughts or questions on those before we keep moving?
I just put in there that I had a student today turn in a TikTok book trailer. It was not assigned as a TikTok book trailer. I just asked them to make a book trailer using Animoto, but I told them if they wanted to use another source, they could. And so she took it upon herself and made one in TikTok, and it was pretty good, actually. I don't think I could assign it, but hers was good.
She actually made it in TikTok?
She did, yeah. It was
wow.
Cool.
There is a TikTok template in those templates that I've got the link on here for, but it's just like a still template so that it's like a teaser picture for a TikTok video that doesn't really exist. So, wow. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to share with you was just Gamestyle Activities. And this is another piece that I feel like you're going to have some, if not a lot, of experience with. So how many of these look familiar to you? Several? Okay. And so I do have links in here. These are Gamestyle interactive pieces that do integrate seamlessly into Google Classroom, and so that's why we've included them on here. But we have Kahoot, Quizzes, Quizlet, and GimKit. There is a free version of GimKit. There are free versions of all of these, but GimKit does try to get you to pay for a version, and so it's going to force you almost into a 30-day trial of the Pro version, but then it just reverts you to the basics. So if you get into GimKit, just know that if you have to get the Pro in 30 days, you're going to be bumped back to the free version anyway. And what that does is kind of limit the number of students you have. But is anybody not familiar with GimKit? Okay. Does anybody use GimKit that would like to give us your take on GimKit?
I use it. I've used it a couple times, and I've even used it this year with my students. It's really fun. It can be kind of complex. The students prefer that the games are a little longer because it is all about leveling up, and there's a lot of different gamification aspects thrown into it. But yeah, it's just it's Kahoot, but with some more tools within it to use. It's fun. The kids like it. I think it does start to cost money once you've made several, but the first few you can make are free.
Yeah, so and basically, as Stuart said, it is kind of like Kahoot. So you're answering questions, but when you answer questions, you get points or money, I think it is. And with the points or money, you can purchase prizes, which are like you can send somebody back some, or you can advance yourself some. And so that's the leveling up that Stuart mentioned. There is a comparison resource that I linked here at the bottom that Kendra found that is really great, that talks about these 4 tools: Kahoot, Quizzes, Quizlet, and GimKit. And so it does kind of give you the pros and cons of those. So if you're wondering which one you may be wanting to use, that's a great resource for you to have as well. Game templates is the only one that I don't have linked on here because I have it linked on the next one. So here are several different game templates, and these are really great because they're in Google Slides or in a Google Doc, and you can share them directly into your Google Classroom, like Kendra and I talked about earlier, either as a make a copy for each student, or as a view only, or as a shared document. So there is a Jeopardy template, Who Wants to Be Millionaire, and Family Feud, which are all the typical game type styles, which are really fun for students, and it does really engage them. Memory games would be a great individual game. The Clue is very interesting, and so there are some templates within that you can take and copy and make your own. And then being able to spin a hyperdoc as a game, I think, is a skill that many teachers would have. And so I did include that on here because we could make a hyperdoc a scavenger hunt. And so these top 2, the second one's a template, but the top one is novel hyperdocs, and it has ready-made hyperdocs that are there for you to be able to take and use. And then the last link on here is just more basic hyperdocs. So maybe you don't teach language arts, or maybe a novel is not where you need to go, but the hyperdoc information on here could help to lead you through that building process.
Are you all familiar with hyperdocs? Has everyone heard of that before? It's almost like, it reminds me of, and I'm going to show my age, but it reminds me of WebQuest, if you're familiar with those. It's just within a Google Slide or a Google Doc, and it's basically they're linked together like a WebQuest would for the different pages.
All right, so a couple of bonus ideas. One, I have got an example on here of teachers creating a choose your own adventure. And so it's basically Google Slides, but the way that they have them linked makes it interactive, because the students then can, this one is actually linked somewhat to directions, because it says you're pulling out of your driveway and blah, blah, blah. And do you want to turn left or turn right? And the student chooses it, and it pops them to that slide. And so this is actually a Google slide that you can take and copy and then edit to be the information that you want it to be. It could be math problems with math answers, or it could be a reading piece where they're reading and then having to answer a question about it. So there's a lot of different uses for that. And then digital escape rooms and interactive Google Sites. We do have a Google Sites training tomorrow at 2:30. Wanted to make sure I share that. But then we do have a digital escape rooms training that a couple of teachers and I did last spring, that hopefully will be up and on our YouTube in the next short time, so that you have access to that as well, because those are great ways to get students involved.
Okay, so we're going to quickly talk about integrated tools. So these are tools that work well with Google Classroom. And so the very first thing that I want to share with you is the Share to Classroom extension. So anyone who works with Google Classroom needs to add this extension. It is a great workflow tool to have. And essentially what it does is you can create an assignment or add a resource to your Google Classroom from any website without having to log into your Google Classroom. So your extension lives, in the top right of your screen, and say I go to this article in CNN and I want to share it, I'm just going to click my extension and it's going to do this. It's going to say, okay, choose your class, and then what do you want to do with it? Do you want to create an assignment? And I can create it right then. So if you don't have this, you need to add it as soon as we're done today. And I linked it. So it's linked at the very top for you as well. So yeah, so right there. So when you go into any of these tools that are mentioned here, you're going to see that nice green button that says share to Google Classroom. So there's a ton of digital tools out there that allow you to share directly to Google Classroom. But if we remember our best practices for remote learning, we want to make sure that we're not introducing a lot of new tools because when we introduce new tools, the tech becomes the focus and not the academics, which we want the academics and content to be the focus. So I tried to choose the ones that I know that in our county we use a lot. So you should be familiar with most of these. But inside the tool itself, it'll have a share to classroom button, and then you can create your assignment right there for your kids. So real quick, are there any of these that you see right now that you're just not familiar with? If you want to just put them in the chat. So any of these tools that you're not familiar with? Or you're welcome to unmute. Okay, so Desmos is an awesome math tool for all grade levels. So if your teachers have not explored Desmos, like I know Maggie works as the media coordinator, it may be a tool that you want to just say, hey, math teachers, this is something you want to look at. It's got some great interactivity. Our math teachers, especially secondary, love it. And then Kami. So Kami has a paid version, but it also has a free version, but it allows students to write on top of a PDF. So if you've not looked at Kami, all of these are linked in the slide. So any of these that are not familiar to you, you can click on them and take a peek. But the free version of Kami works very well. And then Edpuzzle, sorry, that one. Edpuzzle allows you to upload a video and then add stopping points in the videos where students have to answer a question. They cannot move forward in the video until they've answered the question. And then the teacher gets the data from them. All right, Janet.
Okay, so we had hoped to give you work time. Maybe we can cut it down. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that.
Does everybody have the slideshow open? Okay, so what we'd like to do, and we're only going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes instead of the 10 minutes that we had hoped to have. And so what I'd like for you to do, these should be live links on the right. If you'll pick one of these and try finding a template or try finding one of the tools that you want to start working on, make a copy and start personalizing it, even if you don't get done. This will kind of get you on that process and into that workflow. And then make sure as you're saving your copy that you save it with that word original or that word template so that you know that it's yours that you work on, that is not the one that you're giving to everybody else. So we're going to give you about 3 minutes to do that. And then we will, maybe 4 or 5. We've got a few minutes, I think. Yeah. And then we'll come back together and just talk about it. And I'm going to hush while you work. But if you have a question, please feel free to unmute and pop back in and just ask a question or bring up a point that you want us to talk about. And we'll do that as you work. So I am going to start a timer. And we won't take the whole 10 minutes, but go ahead. going to come back together.
So hopefully you had
Middle
some
of working
time.
on something that's no fun.
So hopefully you had some time at least to get started. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. So we're hoping that if you leave here today with at least something started, that you'll follow through with it. So you can either put this in the chat or you can unmute if you'd like to, but we just want you to think about what you're going to create and when you will use it. So set a goal for yourself. You know, it could be, you know, this week, or it could be next week, but share what it is you're going to do and when you're going to do it.
So I looked at the hyperdocs and specifically at a activity entitled Book Bento. It was really incredible. It was, they take the idea of a bento box and apply that to having students give a review for a book. So they get all of these items and they take a picture of all these items surrounding the book like it was in its own bento box. And then using ThingLink, they give a review for the book and then tell why each one of those different items connects to the book or how it connects to the book. So it looks amazing, and I'd really like to have media assistants do that. So yeah, I'd like to work with Stuart. He's got the media assistants this semester, but I think it'd be a great activity for them to do. It seems relatively easy for them to implement, you know, and they're already reading books for the class. So we could just take one of the books they're reading now and have them do that. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, John. I really like ThingLink. I haven't used it recently, but I used it a lot last year, and it's a really neat tool. It's been around for a while. So if you don't know about ThingLink, that's another tool that you might look up and do a little research. So
And
thanks,
I
John.
think even with the limits that may be imposed in ThingLink, I see where you could even use a Google slide deck and hide all the slides and link from one slide to another possibly.
Yeah, that was the
mean-
only problem I saw with it is ThingLink has a limited for the
Yeah.
free accounts limited. Yeah.
Yeah, when I used it for my national boards, and I paid for it just because, you know, I needed it for the boards. But it's a really, if I was in the classroom, it's probably a tool that I would pay for, just because there's so many things. It's like Padlet. There's so many things you can do with it. So Justin said that he might use some of the social media templates for this word I can't pronounce, is some kind of tells that they're going to be reading next week. Awesome. And Lindsay is going to create a Jeopardy game for her third graders. So it'll be a review. And Stuart says, I'm going to work on creating backgrounds to put information on top of, possibly graphic organizers. Cool.
Mhm.
And then Maggie said, I'd like to create a lesson for fourth graders after we read a book together and have them create a Spotify music playlist, naming a song for the main characters, the beginning of the story, the end of the story, and the crux of the plot. That sounds fun. I would love to be in your class that day. So all of these sound amazing. And that's kind of what we were hoping. We were hoping that you guys would leave here with some amazing ideas of way to really up the interaction using G Suite. And I'm going to grab, while Janet's, do you have anything else you need to share, Janet? I will grab the My Learning Plan link.
Yeah, if you'll grab that. I did put this royalty-free image sites in here just because, you know, in Google Suites, typically the images that they're going to find from the search there are going to be great and probably sufficient. But if you do need other pictures for some reason, these are some good sites to use. All right. Any particular questions or other ideas besides what you've shared, which are amazing?
We'd love to see some of these. So if you think about it and you actually follow through and you have time to get these done, if you would just shoot them, just a screenshot or something to one of us, that would be so awesome to see some of these student projects.
Yes. So please do go to the My Learning Plan link today and log in there so that you will be registered for this. And we do thank you all so much for being here. And if you don't have any other questions, you are free to go. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Take care.